Girl, the table is
Whoa.
being shooken. The table is being shooken. When they're doing the news reports, Amanda, and the white people in charge are like, we're so concerned for violence. And only thing I'm hearing is that Amanda's putting out phone numbers and emails. I didn't hear nothing about violence. It just sounds like the white people are upset that the feelings are getting hurt and that their voicemail boxes are being filled and their emails are being flooded with people who are concerned about the ways in which they are taking away Black children away from their families. Amanda, what is the latest? Can you update us on this latest set of circumstances pertaining your activism and the direct actions that you have been taking against Child Protective Services down there?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Well, first, I want to thank you all for allowing us space to talk about this important issue, right? Not enough people know about what is happening in our communities and the fact that our children are being ripped, right, from our communities and then adopted into this foster care system. And so the latest in regards to Durham County is that they have placed a restraining order against me. So the whole department, right, of social services has a restraining order that I cannot speak to any of their employees. They wanted so that I couldn't go onto any government property, but the judge landed on not being able to speak to any employees. I can't use a bullhorn. Okay, I can't use a bullhorn, an amplifying device. The judge wrote it down on his white piece of paper at the hearing. I can't use an amplifying device outside. I have to stay 25 feet away from their building at all times. And I can't speak to the children that are at the office during their visit. So that is what's happening. We are currently in appeal. I do have an attorney to appeal that decision so that we can continue to to push for change here in Durham. I mean, they specifically did that, so I can't even speak to them, right? I can't even speak to them to advocate for these families. So it was very intentional just to sit in the courtroom and hear the director, Ben Rose, speak about his fear, to talk about how his daughter is a Black Lives Matter activist and she doesn't understand why the Black people came to the house to say that something was wrong, right? So just like this, just not understanding what is going on and that they have so much anxiety. And I'm like, well, what about the families that have lost their children that just want them back? What about their anxiety? What about their feelings? Nobody cares about that. And so instead of doing the right thing, Ben Rose has now retired. He left. And so he just put in his resignation and never came back to work because he said that he was fearful that somebody would stop him in Durham and do something to him because he is the one in charge of the kidnapping of children. So we are continuing to push. We have some upcoming court dates that we'll talk about, in a little bit. But in regards to what's going on in Durham and what they're doing in this attack, they put a restraining order, so I can't speak to them.
I just want to say quickly, I mean, to me, that just means that it's working and that you're doing a fantastic, great job. When the authorities feel the need to fight back and they always have their narrative of they're in fear, they're always in fear of something, even though they have all the power, the control, the resources, the cops, and everything else to do what they want to do. But they somehow are in fear. That's the narrative of the elected officials and the political class, which really means they're running scared. So all praise is due to the work that you're doing. And yeah, it sounds to me like you got a great basis for an appeal. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Amanda, obviously, they are continuing to target you because even still, some months earlier, you had been charged. I can't remember what the charges were, but the charges had to be they were dismissed in part, I think, because of the pressure that the followers of Operation Stop CPS were able to help apply to this. So clearly, like Kamal said, what you're doing is working, and they can't stop you, obviously,
Yeah.
despite all of your.
I would say that was in New Hanover County. I was charged with targeted picketing. That was dismissed. But I think last month I was back in New Hanover County because the social worker on another case said that I violated the no contact order that I have there. And that judge did find me guilty of criminal contempt. They said that they had me on camera going like this and telling people to go and follow somebody. And so, yeah, I watched the video in court and I didn't see it, but that's what they saw. And so, I mean, they were asking though for remand. The social worker, she was asking for me to go to jail that day. And I will say, like, in that moment, I mean, I was sitting there, I had to stand up. And when I stood up, all the guards stood up and I'm like, here we go. Right. And like, but to hear the judges say $500 fine and guilty, I was like, cool. I can do that.
So really quickly, I wanted to go back a little bit. You were a social worker. What was it that you saw or experienced or know about that caused you to, I'm assuming, leave the position and do this kind of work? But what caused you to start doing this kind of work in Durham?
Yeah, so I saw what was happening to families. I was doing this for 10 years, and throughout my 10-year career, like, policies had become more oppressive. Like, I've been in a place where I've been able to, communicate, say, this is not right. And I can have a critical thinking conversation with my supervisor. But that was just gone at this point. And I got to a point with 2 specific cases where, like, we were going to court, right, for children that were safe. I mean, I actually took a child into custody that I knew was safe. I knew this child was safe, but I had to write the petition, write the words on the pieces of paper to give to a judge to take this child from her family. And I remember in that moment sitting in the chair and waiting for the judge and knowing that it was going to happen because I had a badge on and I was telling him that it should. And so in that moment, I knew that I had too much power, and this power was so unchecked. And so in that moment, again, I filed the petition. This child came into custody. She didn't understand why she was in custody. The family didn't understand why she was in custody. And I just, like, it affected me mentally because I knew it was my actions that put this child in this situation. And so I went out on FMLA to figure out, what should I do? What can I do? Because I still, like, this is what I know. Investigation is what I know. Helping families is what I know. But how do I take my knowledge that I've learned and now apply it in a different realm? And so that is what we did with Operation Stop CPS. The name Operation Stop CPS, the Responding Power Guide, none of that was written when we went out on FMLA. And we took about 2 months because it got cut short, because once we launched, we got fired. But it took 2 months for us to put it all out. And we just been, on the ground running because, again, we saw that we were the silent enforcers. Right? We were in order for this system to come down, the people that are employed by it have to resist. The families have to resist. Everybody that needs this system has to resist it. And so in forming Operation Stop CPS, it was, one, my apology to families for my 10-year career with this system. And then also now what can be a solution.
Well, we have Kelly Smith joining us today. Kelly, thank you so much for making some time. And Amanda gave me a cursory update or briefing about your situation, that you currently have one of your children with you, but Durham County is attempting to terminate your rights to your older children. What's the situation here with your family?
Yes. So I've been dealing with, fighting a battle with CPS for about 3 years now, trying to get my oldest 2 children back. And I've done everything that the court and CPS asked me to do. And now they're just saying, like, okay, well, the case have been open for so long, even though the case had opened up when I was a minor. They're saying that the case been open for so long, and that they want to place my children up for adoption and terminate my rights.
So what are the things that the state has asked you to do that you have done, and for reasons that the state is not accepting the actions that you've already taken?
They asked me to do to engage in therapy. I've done that. They asked me to do a PCE, which is a parent capacity evaluation. I've also completed that. Drug screening, completed that. A stable home. I have my own home, working a stable job at work. I believe that's it.
What was the reason that they gave for taking your children in the first place?
They said for abuse and neglect, but they didn't have any evidence of abuse and neglect. But I did have a attorney at that time, and the attorney, basically lied to me, and she had me sign a paper saying basically that, what she told me. She said that the paper was saying that because they didn't have any evidence of abuse and neglect, that they was going to be placing up there that the case came open because me and my mom wasn't getting along. But that's not actually what the paper said. It said that I was actually admitting to abusing and neglecting my children. And with me being so young at a 16-year-old mom, not knowing much knowledge about, court or anything about this, I didn't read the paper. I did know that, a lawyer is supposed to represent you in your best, well-being. But in that case, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. We love the babies.
In that case, she wasn't representing me to my best interest.
So when was the last time that you've seen or had contact with your older children? Have you had any sort of visitation with them since they've been taken out of your custody?
Yes, I have visitation with them every other week on Wednesday. So like yesterday I got to see them. And actually when we were getting ready to leave and our visit was over, my daughter had a whole breakdown. She was falling out on the floor. She didn't want to leave. So yeah. And it's like every time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's like that, like her having a fit, like she don't want to go. She wants to stay with me. That's every visit.
And that was going to be my next question. I mean, how has your children being out of your custody, how has that affected them?
With them being so young, they were taken out of my custody at young ages. My daughter was 7 months when they took her, and my son was a month when they took him. And so they don't understand really like what's going on, but they know like, well, I see my mom and I'm not able to stay with my mom, but I want to stay with my mom. And it's like, it's hard to explain to them.
I can imagine. Amanda, what was it about Kelly's case that made Operation Stop CPS get involved?
Well, I will say the first time I met Kelly was at a protest, right? She heard what we were doing in Durham County, and she and Takiel, her son, pulled up and they were out there protesting with us immediately. And she showed up and she stayed. And for us, that's what we're looking for, is families that are willing to fight back, because it can't just be us. You see how they attack us, right? But like families that are willing to stick and stay and fight for their children's freedom. But also just seeing Kelly be a mom, right? Like she literally has a child at home. Like Takia is always with her. Takia is always at all the things that we do. And it's just like, how I can't even fathom this, right? That you have a child at home, but the government is trying to terminate your rights to your other two children. And so for that, we're ready to get in the mud and fight with her to make sure that her children come home. And one thing that I really want people to understand is that this is just not this mom saying she's done everything. So on her parent capacity evaluation that was completed back in May, right? This is one statement. It says, at this time, Ms. Smith has proven that she has the cognitive and functional abilities to provide a safe and stable living environment for her children. So the person that they have asked to evaluate her is giving a stellar review of this mother and her ability. Yet the state is saying she still hasn't done enough. And that is just the reality of what is happening to so many families in Durham County and across this country, is that the state just puts all of these hurdles in front of people to jump. And it's like, but when is enough ever going to be enough? It's going to be enough when we raise our voices up enough to make it enough.
Can I ask a little bit, like, so what about the foster care system and or the adoption system? How is the state using that as sort of the second tier or the second way in which they take these kids from their parents and then basically give them to other people who are, I guess, maybe get some benefit from it or so forth? Can you talk about that part of the system?
Yes, they definitely get benefits from it. Here in North Carolina, you get paid, right, to be a foster parent, depending on the age of the child, hundreds of dollars. If you get a child that's a teenager, special needs, or anything like that, you can get thousands of dollars. And so the state has now turned this foster care system into a babysitting service for children that actually need their natural bonds with their family. When I was a social worker, even though I had kids in foster care, we were still picking them up and taking them to school, taking them to doctor's appointments, all of these things that you would think their foster family would be doing, but it was the social worker, it was the government that was doing for these families. And you know, a lot of people think that these homes are nice and that like you're taking them from a bad situation and putting them in a good situation. I was talking to a social worker that said the home didn't even have a roof that she placed the children in, but that was the best they had in their state, right? And so that is what's going on. These children, the homes are not clean. You got holes in the floor, all of these things that are happening in foster care. And there's children sleeping in government buildings, right? Like that's what's happening. They're sleeping on cots in conference rooms. Now, if you look at the news, you see all of these jail-like facilities coming up to house foster children in, because that's the alternative. And I mean, and for them, it's just the evolution of this system, because the system was built to catch, right? To catch our children and to create this pipeline to prison. And so why not, you know, create this facility that looks like jail to help people and put in their minds that this is all that you will ever have?
Whether through qualitative or quantitative data, do you know what the percentage is, or around about what it looks like in terms of how many of these kids are Black?
So I know that I think it's 56% of Black children will get an investigative report by the time that they turn 18. So over half of our children will get a knock on the door, which then leads to
in the city, in the whole city, 56% of black kids
of the country. Yeah, 50% of the United States.
Of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Over half of our children will get a knock. And it just keeps getting worse. The statistic, it keeps getting worse.
This all sounds very colonial, very 19th century. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing your story, and Amanda for your work. My question is, how has the community support been out in Durham County? Is it just sort of, do you feel like an island with your department, or how's that been?
Yeah, it has. It definitely feels like an island at times. That's what we're trying to find, families that, you know, can fight with us, that really understand abolishment, because people, like even in the community, they understand that sometimes CPS gets it wrong in their eyes, right? But like this whole abolishment conversation of like reimagining what this looks like, we haven't had as much support on that. But I think it's because it's going to take time, right? It's going to take time to get there. But again, we've been trying to create our own community here. Like in Kelly's community, being able to have community events to bring people together, like to really talk about what this is, to teach our children, like, don't speak to CPS when they come to your community and things like that. We've been kicked out of county commissioners' meetings. They've had security that are there. I mean, I say that my reputation, you know, it just kind of follows me everywhere I go. We were in Wake County, and like we had the guard. I was like, what's going on? It's for me. Oh, okay. Like they had taped up the windows so you couldn't see inside the courtroom. I mean, it was like crazy, like what is happening. But we've been told that they are organizing in the back end to take us down. And so, you know, the people in power don't want this to happen. They don't want to stop CPS.
So for people that are watching this, I mean, and I have to thank you, Amanda, because you really awakened my consciousness about this issue. I never contemplated what Child Protective Services does, the ways that their actions impact families and children, and by extension the community. Like you really have taught me something for certain about this. And to watch and follow your work on Instagram, especially follow them at Operation Stop CPS. I mean, the stories of parents that have had their children, particularly Black mothers, had their children stolen away from them. These stories are so compelling. They're so heartbreaking. I encourage everybody to go to your Instagram page and follow your social media. But there is an event upcoming, Amanda, the 14th annual Black People's March on the White House. I think, has that been a year? Was that the first time? I think that you actually joined us last year in advance of that march. So can you talk to us about this march that is coming up in DC?
Yeah, so we are super excited. Kelly and Takia, they're also coming with us to DC to, march on the White House. And so the Black is Back Coalition. So it's a coalition of about 18 organizations that come together for the liberation of our people. And so they have this march every year. And last year was my first time actually being in this environment. And that's what kind of put the bug in me, right? And so we are going back, and I'm excited to go back this year with two mothers that are here in Durham County that are fighting to have upcoming court dates, because we are going to Washington, D.C. to build power. Right? We are going to Washington, D.C. to march, but also tell people what is going on and ask them to come to North Carolina to sit with these mothers when they go and demand the return of their children. And so that's what we're leaving on Friday and driving up. We've got pre-rallies going on Friday. Saturday is the big march, and then the conference is on Sunday. And so we, tell anybody that's watching, if you can come to D.C., it's still time to come and join us and get on the ground and march with us. And then also we're putting a call for resources out as well, because again, we leave tomorrow, but we are covering the cost of these mothers, and we have I think 11 children, so y'all pray for us too. We got 11 children that are going to be traveling with us to DC to march as well. So again, we are putting that call out for resources to make sure that we can cover the cost for all of our families.
Hey, that was my next question. What are the ways that Black Power Media and our remixers and anyone that's going to be watching this, how can we help and support? Where can we direct our resources?
So we have Cash App. So it's Cash App Operation Stop CPS. We also have PayPal, which is PayPal's, I think it's paypal.me. It's /Operation Stop CPS. Or you can go to our website at www.operationstopcps.com, and then it's an Invest Now button right there, and you can donate that way. So anything, just Google Operation Stop CPS, and you can find a way to donate to us. So yes, that's how.
Can I ask one more quick question before you go? I actually don't want to end the interview, to be honest, but
well, let us they can kick it. If y'all got time, we got time.
I'm just curious. So I've seen now, seeing this local media coverage, which obviously was distorted. Have you guys been able now to raise this issue above sort of sympathetic media to get more folks who are talking about this as a national issue? Because I think you blew most of our minds by the percentages of folks, the percentage of Black families who will have a knock on their door from some version of a CPS service investigating child welfare. And we don't talk enough about this as another police operation on our community. Obviously the issue of police violence is prevalent in our community. At least we talk about it. We at times mobilize around it and act around it. But I don't think, obviously, the campaigns around CPS are not as widespread, so forth and so on. So I'm just curious: do you feel like you're getting the message out there more than you have in the past, or let's say since you started this campaign?
Yeah, so we are fortunate to be in community with some organizations that have been in the game for a long time. So Movement for Family Power is in New York. And they are a force to be reckoned with in that area. And so they bring it to the national level. Also, JMAC for Families, Joyce McMillan, which is also in New York. She just went to Geneva to bring this issue of child protective service and the disproportionality in the child welfare system to the United Nations to say this is a problem and it needs to be checked. I'll be back in DC next week on the 9th because they are when I say they, I say the government, the white people, right? They are challenging challenging what's called ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. which says that if a child welfare official tries to take an Indian child, there's things that have to happen before they can take the child. And so the government is challenging that and trying to throw out ICWA. And so organizations that have been in this fight are showing up in DC when the Supreme Court hears this, to bring this to a national level, to say you can't take this away from them, because taking that away from them takes it away from us, people of color, as well. So we got to join this fight and fight together. So yes, we are definitely pushing it to the national level.
Just amazing.
I got another one.
Keep going.
Okay. So what do you so I'm sure you get this question, right? So mainstreamers or even like community members who are out, who always ask these kind of questions, and sometimes they're legitimate, right? So what do you have ideas, suggestions? What should happen in cases, where we feel like there should be some intervention that's not about sort of, again, CPS coming in and doing what they do? What is it that you guys recommend should happen in cases where children need support or families need support, other than the state taking the child, right?
Yeah, so the first thing is, just like we defund the police, we have to defund Child Protective Services, because a lot of that, the refunneling of money back to the communities, would solve a lot of problems, right? And so if we were able to have our communities to be stronger, then that support would look like the community taking care of children. I want to shout Kelly out, right? Because she is a pillar of her community, that any child that's even though she's going through what's happening with her own children, if a child is in need, she's there and she's taking care and she's doing what has to happen. And that's what we're trying to do, which is reimagining what community responsibility looks like. The government has taken this responsibility from us. They're saying that call us when something's wrong. But as a child welfare worker, I could tell you nothing happens when you pick up that phone other than more trauma to the family. And so how do we create safe spaces for our own children? If there's a family that's in need of food, why don't we have food in the community, right? If they need clothes, why don't we have clothes in the community? Even when we think of things like children that are being abused, why is the parent so stressed out or so angry that they are abusing their creation, right? We got to get deep on these questions, right? And really figure these things out. And that looks like healing our own communities. We do a lot of work with yoga. Like my wife, she does yoga and healing, because we understand that healing is a part of this process. In our community, we really got to heal, and we really have to take back control. That's what we call for. Community control of our children. We are calling and we are demanding control of it. And we don't have to all have it figured out, right? Like we don't have to have it figured out. Like that's the question. What you gonna do, right? When this system is abolished? Well, it hasn't been abolished yet, so we don't know, right? But we're gonna check. We're gonna try it out. On the Up In movement, they just had a convening, and Angela Davis was on there and talking about this child welfare issue. And she said, like, it's trial and error in this fight. Like, you have to try this out, and you see what works and what doesn't work. What we know is, like, community does work because we're seeing it. Here in Durham County, it's a beautiful thing. We just met yesterday with the mothers that are going to DC, and just seeing all these children and these babies in this room, and saying, like, if something pop off, we know we popping off with it, right? Like that, like having that in your mind and saying, like, no, nothing's gonna happen to these kids because we're gonna pull up for them. And so that's what we say, is that we know community is the answer to this problem. We just gotta have the resources to do it.
As always.
Yeah.
Listen, remixes, you got Cash App. Listen, Burn It Down with Kim Brown's about to pull up Cash App right now and zip resources to Operation Stop CPS. I mean, Amanda, I am so moved by your work, by your fortitude. You know, I'm a little reluctant to heap like, oh my God, you're so strong, you're so tough. You know, because Black women, we are vulnerable. You are obviously being targeted by the system, so I know that comes with a certain amount of stress stress and anxiety within itself. So I want to acknowledge that. But my God, girl, you are the white people are afraid, and I fucking love it. Like not a threat has been uttered, and yet they are quaking and getting restraining orders against you. That just says, like Kamal said, you are doing the right thing. And I'm so grateful and appreciative that Black families in North Carolina have somebody like you, and Black children and Black mothers have somebody like you that is out there willing to risk it in order to make sure that this system comes down. And I cannot express enough appreciation and gratitude for the work that you do. And Kelly, you as well, for stepping up for children in your community, in addition to your own children, especially with your experiences right now. Like, I mean, the magnitude of Black women is undefeated out here. And I applaud you both. So don't forget, you guys, it's this weekend, the 14th annual Black People's March, which I'm sorry, Amanda, what's it called?
14th annual Black People's March on the White House.
That's right. That's right. Operation Stop CPS. Check out their social media and support them with resources so they can attend this event this weekend. Kelly, thank you so much. Amanda Wallace, y'all know her name. I'm gonna get a t-shirt say Amanda Wallace. I am Amanda Wallace on the joint.
Let's take it down.
Take the shit down, man. Thank you guys for getting up and making some time to speak with us and to share your knowledge in everything that you are doing with the Black Power Media Remix audience this morning.